beginning of the season, but it's also a very good indicator of what we can expect, and also just feedback for the teams of what do they need to work on, where are their weaknesses moving forward, where are their strengths. So a lot of information we'll find out over the course of this next 6 kilometers.
So many great squads on the line here. A much bigger group of athletes at the line than we saw in those B races, which afforded some of the other runners from these squads to get a chance to race as well. But these are the top individuals that we're keeping an eye on. Includes a couple out of those squads at Oregon and Washington. Chloe Scrimgeour is the top returner from last year with Georgetown. We saw Parker Valby absolutely destroy this race course in those rainy conditions in a course record time that led her all the way to Paris as a member of Team USA. It was a remarkable run for her on that day. But, you know, so much talent on so many of these squads, and the race both for the individual title and the team title. I mean, you're trying to send messages here, right, Kara? This is going to be the first of 3 championship caliber races on this course, with pre-nats in October and the big one, the NCAA championships, in November.
Well, look, you're learning here and you're getting ready for something further down the road, but you also don't want to expose any weaknesses to your competition. You don't want them to know where you are lacking. So, yeah, this isn't a national championship, but there's still a lot of pride on the line right now, and people trying to sort of get in each other's heads for further down in the season. So this is an important race.
The 2024 Nuttycombe, Wisconsin Invitational is underway at the Thomas Zimmer Championship Cross Country Course. This is the women's championship race with a host of the top college teams in the country here. Some here for the first of what will be, they hope to be, 3 appearances on this course, with pre-nationals in October and the NCAA championships in November. As we'll see, this early few hundred meters bring all that group together. Controlled chaos at the line here.
Yeah, and this is aggressive off the start here. This is a little bit what we were talking about earlier in cross country. You know, there's this balance of getting out hard and getting good position, but not getting out too hard. So this is a very aggressive start here. These women are not messing around. And we might see some pretty fast times today.
We did note in both of the B races we had early leaders that eventually came back to the pack. And I suppose, you know, part of what we will be talking about in the context of this particular visit to Thomas Zimmer is a lot of these folks have never run this course before. So you're going to learn a lot on this course if you hope to be back. Most notably, want to be back in late November.
Yeah, and it's okay to make mistakes. You know, you want to be as clean as possible, but you're really trying to figure out where's my strength on this course? What's the best way for me to run it that maximizes my talent and getting the least amount of points for my school and finishing as high as possible? So you might take some risks today or at pre-nationals trying to figure out exactly what race strategy is right for you. And you're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot about what sections of the hills felt manageable, what sections felt really tough that you need to work on. Did you still have your kick? Were you able to recover on those downhills? So this is a very aggressive race out front. And we see there's a separation of this lead pack of 3. But then look behind that, Paul. This is one big blob of women. I mean, this is an aggressive race. People have decided to go out there and run hard. I couldn't come up with a better word. But that is a giant pack of women chasing these top 3 women.
First time I've heard blob used in a live cross-country broadcast, well, but you're making history here as well.
That's what happens when you and I work together, Paul. When you and I work together, you never know.
I've got my next coffee cup to send you. All right, we're back on the course here. We're following the early leaders in this women's A race. As we see Rosina Machu of Gonzaga, the senior, as she was listed among our favorites here in the early going, and that was no surprise. Betty Kipore, the freshman from Iowa State, trying to make an early statement here in Wisconsin. We'll get splits out on the course at 2 and 4K. That'll also afford us the opportunity to reset the team race as well. And as they get into that little bit of a hilly section in these tree-lined parts of the course. You can see from high above from that drone coverage how that top three group has broken themselves slightly away from what is still a large, using Kara's words, blob of a field. And down below you see the athletic course elevation tracker, and you can see now they'll be approaching that first climb, and then a nice downhill stretch will bring them to that 2K split.
So they are climbing now, and they are aggressive out in front here. That'll be interesting to see if that bites them later on, or if they just have the strength to run through this. But I feel like the wind has picked up a little bit. I feel like we're seeing the trees moving a little bit more, the flags moving a little bit more. And even though it's a warm day, the wind can still affect you and affect the way the race feels later on. So an impressive run out front here, but really just looking at that giant pack of women kind of feeling each other out, looking for their teammates, trying to find the proper position. And they have a lot of running left. So a lot of them, I feel like, are holding back a little bit because they don't want to lose their race in the first 2 kilometers of this. They don't want to leave it all out there yet. They have so much more running still to go.
Sadie Sigstad of Villanova, that third member of the trio in front, the junior from Villanova. Villanova, again, one of those legendary cross-country teams over the years, and have a good squad coming out here to Madison to try to make a statement early in the season. Of course, NC State enters the year looking to be the first team to win 4 NCAA cross-country championships in a row since Villanova did that when they were on their way to winning 6 in a row back in the late 80s and the early 90s.
I was surprised to see NC State ranked number 1, Paul. I have to say, they graduated their top 3 or 4. Their coach, Lori Hennes, was very realistic about. I don't know where that ranking came from. I think that ranking came from, we've seen her magic over the last few years and her really create a great team culture and really create amazing athletes out of the athletes that she has. And so it kind of feels like, well, of course you're going to get it done again. But I think it will be a much bigger challenge this year. They are a little bit more rebuilding than they have been the last few years.
Yeah, and I suppose that's also a sign of respect that, until someone shows otherwise, and maybe the coaches from those other squads absolutely love that because they don't have the bullseye on.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think you're right. I think it is a bit of a sign of respect. Hey, look, you've done this 3 years in a row when things were going great, when things, they had some hiccups last year and they still pulled it off. So I think it is mostly that. But I do think that women's title is pretty wide open this year. A lot of teams on the rise, and, I think programs that have been, I think about a team like Oregon that's now had a coach for a few years now, a new coach with Shalane Flanagan that's really starting to figure out that process and figure out that training system. So I think the women's team competition is going to be very interesting this year, and it feels very open.
Well, and here's the fun part of the race as we finally get our first splits out on the course. This is through 2 kilometers, and Machu of Gonzaga is the leader. You see her lead about 2 seconds on Sigstad of Villanova, then Caron of Penn State, and Phoebe Anderson of Columbia. And then the early leader, Kip Corey, has kind of fallen back, but she's still in the mix in 5th position. Then a huge group about 10 seconds behind. And that real-time updating of the team scoring has Virginia in the early lead. Georgetown, North Carolina, Utah. No sign of Oregon yet, getting all their 5 members across. So we'll wait and see how these top-ranked teams, as we mentioned, Oregon coming in as the top-ranked team on the women's side here at Nuttycombe. They're ranked 4th in the country, 1 spot ahead of Washington. Providence ranked 10th in the country, and they sit in 6th. After the first 2K. And realistically, and reading some of the comments being made by a lot of the coaches on these squads that have come here to race, is for the teams that are really hoping to be here in late November, they don't need to win Nuttycombe to get value out of the experience here. They are here, and they may be back here for pre-nats, and each one of those races might have different strategic value for them And then it really, all that matters is how they perform on that final race day in November.
And as you said, Paul, it is early in the season, and these teams that are hoping to factor later in the year, as you said, at the national championships, they can't rest for this, right? They're training through this. This is bulk training time for a lot of these athletes. It doesn't mean we can't see some fantastic performances and some standout performances, but I think a lot of these teams are thinking long term of what do we want at the end of November? That's more important than whenever we're going to get today. So I'm going to come here today and we want to run smart, we want to run well, we want to learn, but maybe we don't want to leave all of our cards on the table yet. We want to hold back a little bit and maybe come back at pre-nationals and run a little better, and then still hold back a little bit, because the race that really matters for these teams that are hoping to win a national title is obviously the national championship.
Machu, who was a NCAA outdoor track and field qualifier for the trip to Eugene at both 5,000 and 10,000 meters, made the final in the 10,000 meters. All-American last year in cross country. Senior out of Boise, Idaho. Won that state championship there 3 times. And now leading here, trying to follow in the footsteps of Parker Valvey, who won this one going away, but not going away right now is the competition for Machu as Sigstead of Villanova tries to stay in contact, and has, as you see the athletic course tracker showing where they are out on the course, 3 kilometers in now, halfway home, and really 2 women here in a battle for the lead, and all that team racing happening behind them. And look at that group back in starting in 5th position, Kara. There's still dozens of women in that grouping there, and that has so much bearing on the team race, because you can make significant strides in moving your team up here as long as you're part of those groups.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing, is that it is a full 6 kilometers. So these team scores are interesting early on, but so much can happen from 4K to 6K. But I am very impressed by this racing out front. It is super aggressive, especially for this time of year. Makes you wonder, are we going to see something really special come national championship time if these athletes are going to continue to just improve and improve. Machu is happy to lead this. She's not afraid. She went straight to the front. I mean, that gun went off and she was straight to the front. She's not afraid to push here. But sometimes that is a disadvantage. You know, you have someone just riding on you the whole time. You know, we talked about earlier about the difficulty in cross country not being able to zone out. But sometimes you can't attach yourself to someone like this. You could attach yourself to the leader and just try to ignore everything but stay in that position. And I think that's what we're seeing right now out of Sigstead. She's just content to let her pull her. She's going to let Machu pull her for as long as possible and see if she can stay there and be there towards the finish.
Sigstead was 4th at last year's Big East Cross Country Championship before eventually being part of Villanova's squad at the NCAA Championships for cross country, when she finished back in 71st place. Along with Machu, was also in that NCAA 10,000 meter final. So a pair from that final in Eugene now racing here for a Nuttycombe championship in 2024 as they reach 12 minutes elapsed on the clock, coming close to that 4 kilometer distance where we'll have the next set of in-progress results and see where the rest of the field was. It was 10 seconds, the delta there between the leaders and that huge pack at 2K, and it's a significantly longer distance of time. I think we'll find here confirmed shortly that these 2 women have really put some time and distance on the rest of the field.
I mean, these women aren't here just gathering information. They are here racing hard. And, you know, sometimes early in the season, you just want to establish that I'm here for a national title and I'm the one to beat this year. And both of these women are committed to the plan at this point. They are committed to seeing this through. They're about to hit 4 kilometers and they are so far ahead. I mean, look at that aerial shot. This is incredible what they're doing right now.
So So Rosina Machu and Sadie Sigstead closing in on this 4 kilometers. Should come up right there. There's the timing mat, so they come across the line. We'll soon have their splits, and it'll be Machu officially with the lead with 2 kilometers to go. And wait for the next, I think that's Florence Perrin of Penn State now to be confirmed. It is, and Anderson of Columbia. Those are the top 4. There, Perrin was 10 seconds behind, so that was where the big group of women were at the 2 kilometer split. Maeve Stiles of Washington in 5th. Now we're starting to see the big changes and the big moves that are being made by some of the top teams in the country. And the biggest move here between the first 2 kilometer split looks to be Washington. They were 5th after 2K. They now are unofficially the leaders here with Utah, Georgetown, and Providence in tow. Virginia had the lead at 2K. They now in that 5th position, but just 71 places between 1st and 5th here, Kara, and with that still large group in that main chase group, still a lot of changes expected in that final team race. Oregon in 11th, you see there, their top squad led by Barnett. Annika Thompson back in 48th position, and then a group there in the 70s and 80s. But I think if you're in the 70s and 80s, you're still part of that main group. It's been a remarkable collection of women that have been able to maintain themselves. But up front here, a big change in the lead as Sigstead has decided to make her move with a little over a K&a-half to go.
Yeah, she decided to press this. She doesn't want it to come down to a kick. She's running right on that line, running the tangent really, really well, pressing. She knows what's left of this course. She knows she's gauging her fitness and how she's feeling and how she wants to run this final bit of the race here. But it was interesting, Paul, seeing that graphic. Washington, really everyone moving up. Every single woman on their squad moving up in position place-wise from the 2nd kilometer through the 4th kilometer. And there's a couple different ways to win a national championship. One is to go out hard and be in the front and hang on, and another way is to really climb throughout the race and really negative split it. And it seems like that's what Washington is doing right now, and might be their plan for this season, to really be one of those teams that comes through in the second half of the race to move up and move forward.
So coming up on 5 kilometers elapsed here in this 2024 Nuttycombe, Wisconsin Invitational for the championship race for the women. The men's race to follow here at the top of the hour. Washington leading the team race here on the women's side through 4 kilometers, and Sadie Sigstead now out and away from Machu of Gonzaga and taking control of the lead here in front on her way to an individual title. Villanova as a team back in 12th.
Yeah, Sigstead's lead is just opening up, Paul. I mean, this wasn't a little move that she was hoping to get a little daylight. She is running away with this right now. We're having a little bit of, I'm getting a little bit of Parker Valby vibes here right now. Just such a dominant move and performance. Look at that aerial shot. Look at how big her lead is. And with every step, it continues to grow here. This is about as dominant as we see in a race, especially this time of year. She looks so great. She still has 800 meters to run, but I don't see her falling apart at this point. She looks fantastic.
And back from the gator, you can see that wind really has, as you mentioned, Kara, good catch on seeing how that wind has really added another dimension that we did not see in those B races, and here kind of sideswiping the athletes. So adding to those authentic cross-country conditions, even though it's a relatively summer-like day in Wisconsin. Temperatures in the 70s. The crowd lining this portion of the route now just a half kilometer from the finish as Sigstead seemingly now in total control of this race. A good race maybe behind her now for top 5 positions here is the group that was pretty much all together for the first 2/3 of this race, finally beginning to string out.
Well, Sigstead hopefully at this point is really right now using this, thinking about what this will look like in November, picturing herself in the NCAA championship. She's so far ahead right now that she has an opportunity here to really do a lot of mental strength work right now. Like, what is this going to look like? What is this going to feel like? I'm going to be back here. How am I going to fight for a little bit more time to push a little bit harder? But this is an excellent, excellent race out of her. And she is just rolling here with only 200 meters to go here, Paul.
Well, the Big East indoor champion at 5,000 meters last year has made quick work of this 6,000 meter course. As she gets into the final close, that gentle rise and that climb that greets these women to the finish line. And that arch will suddenly come into view here. Repurposed from Camp Randall Stadium, the football stadium at the University of Wisconsin, added to this course a few years after it opened in 2009. Kind of gives you something to keep an eye on as you're getting yourself to the finish line. And no one will get to the finish line faster than Sadie Sigstead of Villanova. She is going to take the victory here at Nuttycombe, getting herself to the line under 20 minutes. As Florence Caron of Penn State with a nice close, she overtakes Machu of Gonzaga to finish second. As Machu finishes in third, Phoebe Anderson in fourth, and Kimberly May of Providence finishing in fifth. And now we'll keep an eye on some of those singlets that were featured prominently in the race for the team title. Keeping an eye on Providence, Villanova, Washington. And again, the top-ranked team coming in was Oregon. And I think they've had their first athlete come across the line. But here's the difference maker, Kara, in this chaos that we're witnessing at the finish line. Somebody's fifth runner is going to win them a Nuttycombe title.
Oh, absolutely. That's what you need. You need a full squad. You can't just have one or two standouts. You need that full squad, and that's why this sport is so special and the team aspect so special. You need 5 people to come across that line, and look, we have that now with Washington.
Yeah, Washington to the line with their first 5 across. Providence, Furman, and Gonzaga still waiting for their 5th place runners. So unofficially, and you can see already the 111 is now down to 110, and what they're doing is removing any individual athletes that are not part of the team competition and rescoring that team race based on that updated end result. So Washington now with 110, Utah, Georgetown, Providence, and the host squad from Wisconsin trying to hold up their part and finish here in the top 5. If you're just joining us, news came out during the men's B race that the Wisconsin men's team not scheduled to have a team running in the A race coming up shortly. So the Wisconsin women, the only Badger squad in the A races today, and they, for the moment, have finished in 5th. Oregon back in 9th position. And waiting for these final results coming through. You see the spread for Oregon. You know, they have a lot of talent. I don't see Ilades, who's one of their top runners here. And again, that's the thing that we, almost couldn't prepare for, Kara, is that the way that this meet has always been designed, and we've asked nicely, coaches don't have to make decisions about who will race until race day, and so you can prepare and say that all these, lead stars are going to race, but in the case of some of these top teams, including Oregon, it appears that some last-minute decisions were to hold some of their top runners out.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if most of the teams held an athlete or two out, honestly. We want to see them all race, but they're playing the long game. The season is long. It's a difficult sport. You got to keep everyone healthy and ready. So bummer for us that we don't get to see everyone go head to head yet, but this still was some interesting information. We got to see the way that the teams moved through the pack and how they moved on the second half of the race. And then up front, we got to see a great women's race. And we got to see that, we got to see athletes that want to step it up this year, that maybe were in the mid-pack last year, that now this year want to be fighting for that title. So we did get a lot of information out of this effort. We still have women coming across the line. Great race. As always, Nuttycombe is just such a fantastic cross-country meet.
And this young lady, Sophie Sigstad of Villanova, what a great race. A storied program at Villanova. You were the Mid-Atlantic region champion last year. Now here you are winning one of the biggest invitationals in the country. Tell us a little bit about your tactics today.
I think just my coach knows me the best. We have a great connection. I've worked with her now for 4 years, and she knows that I'm an endurance-based runner, so a hard pace from the start is probably going to serve me best. So she honestly is pretty open-minded before races. She kind of just tells us to go run, and she's like, yeah, you should be able to trust your racing instincts at this point. Been doing it long enough, like you'll know what to do. And I just felt when the girls took it, I raced one of them in the 10K. They're great runners, and I was like, I like a hard pace. I'm going to go with them and just see what happens. And kind of just made decisions as the race went on.
Well, this is a great race to make great decisions and also make a great name for yourself.
I'm doing
Looking
good.
ahead, you've got obviously conference meets, regional meets, and hopefully be back here for the NCAA championships in November as well.
I hope so. I love this course. I raced here as a freshman, and it was like a highlight of the year. And it's going to be colder and snowy, which is just like home for me. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, the U20 champion while in Canada and knows about running in the cold. And we had a great race today, and we'll see you back here November 23rd. Sophie Sigstad, Villanova, your individual women's champion.